Ah, Bethesda. A perfect example of everything that's amazing about the RPG genre. And also everything wrong with it. Slow starts to games, bugs, pretentious writing, level scaling that completely ruins the combat, bugs, illusion of complexity, bugs, more bugs. These are mostly issues that came with time. 3D is an incredibly immersive facet of games, but it places restrictions. Game worlds can only be so large without ruining the file space. When games look closer to reality, we expect details you wouldn't expect in a less realistic world. 2D, or in Daggerfall's case, stylized 3D, allows for the things we love from RPGs, whilst letting it take liberties that can overcome some of the genre's biggest issues. One way I can determine whether or not a CRPG succeeds in its role to check if it passes the minutes test. Trademarked, i.e., can I start a new game with character creation in a minute or less? With that said, everyone, welcome to my Skyrim speedrun. Okay, here we are. You know, I've played this game many times before. They really like talking. Okay, so maybe Skyrim isn't the best game for this. It's already been 5 minutes and nothing changed since I pressed play. Alright everyone, welcome to my Fallout 3 speedrun. Here we are. Okay, it's been a full hour and I can finally play the game. They felt the need to give context to the creation of your character, despite the fact that even after completing these tests you can just pick your own results anyway. It's completely useless. I must enforce the idea that there's nothing necessarily wrong with having a long start to a game, even in games designed to be replayable, but it really should be optional, or at the very least skippable on a second run through. Sure, you can add this with mods, but it shouldn't be a modder's job to design a game. A good example of this done right is Amnesia the Bunker. The game has a pretty long opening sequence setting up the horror, but on a second playthrough, you're given the option to just skip it and wake up in the bunker without the necessary context, because the game knows that you don't need it. Considering the fact the game goes out of its way to be replayable, it's a really good feature. I've heard tons of people call Fallout 3 one of gaming's best intros, or one of its worst. The issue here is that it's an interesting intro and great on a first playthrough, but it's so slow that on a second, or a third, or a seventh playthrough, it's absolutely abhorrent. RPGs should be replayable. It's weird, because Bethesda knows how to do this right. Alright everyone, welcome to my Elder Scrolls Arena speedrun. There we go, ding ding, passes the minutes test. Getting back to Daggerfall's character creation is just the best I've ever seen. Not only do you have an absolute shopping list worth of skills to specialise in, including combat, magic, stealth, languages, specific weird items, and a bunch of other stuff, but you also have to assign 12 of them. You can't specialise in everything, only these 12. And you have to assign 3 as major, 3 as primary, and 6 as minor. On top of that, you also have special advantages and disadvantages to choose from, such as bonuses to certain skills, higher chances to hit certain types of enemies, or new abilities like the adrenaline rush, better hearing or higher agility. Disadvantages level this out, like not being able to regenerate magic, or certain types of weapons, armor, and materials being banned entirely. Then you get to pick demographics, letting certain groups react to you better or worse. There's also just a bunch of other stuff I haven't mentioned, like how you can change the way your intelligence and HP changes with each level, but as a result, your level's slower. All of this has to even out. The total demographic spill must be 0, and the advantages and disadvantages affect this meter. The higher it is, the slower your character levels. Therefore, while a lot of these advantages are nice, it can be a good idea to have the meter be as low as possible, to let you level up so fast and get so many points to your base stats. Therefore, whilst a lot of these advantages are nice, it can also be a good idea to have the meter be as low as possible to let you level up faster and get as many points as possible into your base stats. What all of this means is that there are so many different ways to build your character without them being too overpowered. Not only is it a system with a ton of personality and style, but it's perfectly balanced. I'm genuinely astounded that they made this in 1996, and no game, even in the same series, has been able to recreate this. And to top it off, it's all optional. There are over 20 existing classes that you can just pick and skip everything I just mentioned, and get into the game in seconds. It's a perfect example of a game passing the minute test. Okay, so just for some fun, let's go over some of my personal favourite builds. The All-Rounder. If you're willing to let your levels come slowly, you can get boosts to every aspect of the game, letting you master both a specific weapon and magic at the same time, instead of just picking one. Obviously, this will force you to level at a snail's pace. The Fast Leveler. Essentially the opposite of the All-Rounder, you can instead give yourself an insane amount of debuffs and then level super fast, making your base stats insanely high early in the game, and then building a character around whatever's still available to you. Assassin's Peed. Put your points into climbing, running, jumping, stealth and critical strike, then just jump sneak up on enemies and get them in a couple hits. If they see you, just run, jump or climb away until you get to try again. Spider-Man. Essentially a variant of the assassin, but putting points into ranged weapons instead, allowing you to just jump to an advantage point and take enemies out from across the room. The Vampire. Take damage from sunlight and holy places, and use these debuffs to give yourself a silly amount of power somewhere else. Not much more to say, to be honest. The Linguist. But why fight when you can be a pacifist? Debuff all of your character's combat skills and put absolutely everything into charisma and luck. Then become fluent in every language known to man, allowing you to just pacify every enemy without even taking a single scratch. John Skyrim. Stealth Archer. Do I need to say any more? Get every enemy before they even see you for a disgusting amount of damage. Beautiful. Lucky Fellow. You could always decide to be the protagonist of a comedy action movie with awful skills in anything and everything, but with such a ridiculous amount of luck that you stumble across endgame gear and never get hit for anything at the very start of the game. Whilst luck simply just affected gear in Arena, Daggerfall lets it affect literally every other skill. Whenever you do anything at all in this game, luck plays a factor. I hate weapons. Ban all weapon types, int ×3, heightened magic ability in darkness, and watch as your low level spells absolutely obliterate every rat you see. And I hate spells. Whilst I do not recommend this even slightly, you can indeed ban all spells no matter what, and allow yourself expertise within a blade, just crushing everyone around you. Trust me, I could go on, but the game just has endless builds. You could try out one of these, or just come up with your own ideas. I do indeed want to briefly touch on the plot, but it's very hard to, simply because, well, I didn't beat it. Daggerfall's main story is pretty good, but, well, there's way too much side content, and no one really plays it. It's also just really confusing because, well, there isn't a linear progression between missions. Instead, there's a ton of missions that will just unlock when you hit certain levels, and different chains of missions, not all of which are required to get to the ending, and a good chunk of which never need to be done at all. I mean, just look at this graph. Oh my god. There isn't that much interesting to say, as in terms of missions, Daggerfall tends to focus on stats and mechanical depth rather than gimmicks or set pieces like in the later games. Generally, the writing is the most interesting, so our good buddy here, Patrick Stewart, he has two things for us to do. For one, we need to exorcise the ghost of King Lysandras of Daggerfall, and he also sent a letter to someone, but this is initially portrayed as a small matter, despite actually being the main focus of the game. He's just hiding it from you. So off you go to aid Lysandus in getting his revenge against whoever it could be that hurt him, and discover what happened to those sexy letters that Patrick Stewart sent out to his mistress, because somebody stole them. Eventually, this leads to the player discovering the totem and journeying to Aetherius, leading to one of 5 endings. Obviously, there's a lot more to the game than that, but let's just talk about the endings. You can give the Mantella to the Underking, he'll absorb the power and pass into eternal rest. You can give it to Gortwarg, and he'll use it to destroy the Imperial forces and create Orsinium, the Kingdom of Orcs. If you give it to the Blades, they'll succeed in creating the first Numidium and defeat the Bay Kings and Orcs. If any of the Bay Kings win, that king will use the first Numidium to defeat all of the other kings before the Underking destroys itself. And the best ending, if Manimarco receives the Mantella, he makes himself a god. That's it. There was also an unused ending planned by Bethesda. If the player activated the Mantella while in possession of the totem, the Numidium would just slay the player, go out of control and be destroyed by the Imperial forces. I assume this was cut since there wouldn't really be a way for the player to keep playing the game after finishing it, because they're dead. Side quests have always been a large part of the appeal of RPGs, and Bethesda in particular. But without mods, they really aren't anything special in Daggerfall. You get something randomly generated. Hey there, go fetch me an item I want. Hey there, go kill this guy. Hey there, go genocide this dungeon.
Where's the bloody exit?
There isn't that much to say regarding storytelling. Dungeons are fun purely to the amount of loot and XP you get, as well as the rewards for completing quests and working your way up the totem pole within guilds. Most of the fun instead comes from something we refer to as emergent gameplay. Scripted gameplay is when a game creates a very specific situation that allows a player to have fun or be entertained because, wow, this is just like a movie! I get to hold forward and climb through cracks in the wall! Naughty Dog and Rockstar are pretty good examples of this design, and while it can be fun, it just isn't good for an RPG experience, and I don't really know why so many RPGs are trying to be Rockstar games nowadays. Emergent gameplay is when a game gives you the tools to create your own fun. Minecraft is a good example, not necessarily giving the player a main goal or motivation, despite technically having an end called the end, but rather it just gives players the tools to create their own fun. Breath of the Wild is also a good idea. E.g., hey, go kill the big bad if you want, but in reality, lots of players will just ignore that for a couple hundred hours and do smaller things, like searching for specific items or doing silly stuff with the batshit physics engine. By giving the player a ridiculous amount of spells, items, weapons, quests, locations, guilds, Daggerfall doesn't really need Naughty Dog set pieces or Titanfall levels of entertaining moment-to-moment gameplay. It has the tools that let players create their own fun, and smaller goals for the sandbox. If you're bored, you're just not being creative enough. When you aren't running around the town harassing locals and crazy people, the main chunk of your gameplay will indeed be in dungeons on quests, engaging in combat with the more than friendly local. Like any good RPG, you start out in a dirty dungeon covered in poo-poo, getting kicked in the behind by rats and bats and cats and mats and flats and mats. No! But if you know how to build your character, you can get a far easier start. With that being said, it's in your best interest to create a character who will basically just dash at a privateer's hold, holding their head in their hands in order to let your endgame be more effective, as magic and long-range builds are horrendous out the gate, but trust me, it will save you later on. As for magic, it's actually very in-depth. Obviously, you can just be boring and buy your spells from the local Mages Guild, but what you really want to do is create your own, with the Mages Spellmaker interface, allowing you to make some of the most broken builds in this entire franchise. Teleport from Daggerfall to Sentinel in a moment's notice, no one can stop you. Defeat the Dark Lord in a single fireball, do 100 damage per level, cure every ailment in the world. As long as you have enough gold to buy the spell, you can do it. You can even create spells that allow you to temporarily learn languages, pacifying enemies too difficult for the player to just fight head on. But if you don't feel like that kind of depth, just go for an archery build. Riveting gameplay. Or hand-to-hand combat. That was the first enemy in the game, by the way. Weapons are actually quite a good way to go, equipping your Daedric Daikatana and watch all of the enemies around you turn into mush. But the early game weapons will just not go down easily to iron or steel. Subprivate's Hold basically just turns into a contest of how many times you and your enemies can miss hitting each other. To close the video, I think I should quickly go over something. All of the footage in this video is taken from the Daggerfall Unity mod, i.e. the only version of Daggerfall people play today. It's incredibly easy to set up and allows for a far smoother, polished and bug-free Daggerfall experience, as well as having a ton of settings to let you fine-tune the game and mod it as much as you want, even just remaking all the textures, quests and dialogue to be as accessible as possible, and anyone can change them to its liking. A feature that the community has sadly abused to hell and back. Here is my mod list. I'll just let that go by. Yeah, okay, and I will indeed link the mod itself below. In conclusion, Daggerfall is pretty great. The vanilla DOS game kinda sucks. It's full of bugs and spelling issues, the writing makes no sense, the controls are clunky, but just don't play that version and you won't have the issues. If you're looking to get past this insane difficulty curve and admittedly dated graphics, Daggerfall will offer a legitimately unique experience like no other RPG today. You may just lose dozens of hours to it like many others. I know I have. I bestowed vanilla Daggerfall 6 side quests out of 10, and Daggerfall Unity 9 Daedric builds out of 10. Yes, seriously, this mod is that good.
Now, my champion, rest well this night, for tomorrow you sail for the kingdom of Daggerfall.
Oh my god, okay. This video took longer than I thought. As of recording, because my office has like dog shit acoustics, I'm sitting in my room under a blanket to not sound like I recorded it in a tin can. And oh my god, it is so hot. I'm sweating like, oh my god. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go have a shower. Bye.